The wind carried a different sound that night. It was not the kind of wind that brushed gently against trees or slid softly through open windows. This was a restless wind, one that seemed to remember things. It moved across the English countryside like an invisible witness, passing over silent fields, abandoned roads, and structures most people had forgotten existed. To an ordinary traveler, the rolling hills of Britain looked peaceful. Green stretches of land, quiet villages, old stone cottages, and narrow winding lanes that felt frozen in time. But beneath that calm beauty lay something far darker, buried deep in the earth, a network of hidden bunkers built in fear, secrecy, and desperation. During the Cold War, Britain lived in the shadow of an invisible enemy. The war was not fought with soldiers marching across borders, but with threats, paranoia, and the constant possibility of annihilation. The government knew that if nuclear missiles were ever launched, life above ground would not survive. So they built their defenses not in the sky, but underground, hidden beneath the very soil of the nation. One of these bunkers sat beneath a quiet forest in rural England. Locals knew it only as the old concrete building on the hill. Children were warned not to go near it. Farmers avoided it. Even the birds seemed to circle it warily, as if sensing something unnatural hidden below. To the untrained eye, the entrance looked like nothing more than a sealed metal door embedded into a concrete slab. No sign, no warning, no explanation. But behind that door lay miles of tunnels, thick blast walls, and rooms designed to keep life functioning while the world above burned. Inside, the air was heavy, cold, still, almost alive. The bunker had been abandoned for decades, but it had not been empty, not really. The walls were lined with peeling paint, once white, now yellowed with age. Flickering emergency lights hung from the ceiling, some still faintly glowing despite years of neglect. The smell of rust, dust, and something metallic filled the air. In the main command room, an old map of Europe still hung on the wall. Red markings traced possible missile trajectories from the Soviet Union to Britain. Lines of threat, lines of fear, lines that once kept generals awake at night. A single wooden table sat in the center of the room, surrounded by outdated chairs. Papers lay scattered across it, reports, emergency protocols, classified documents now reduced to fragile, crumbling pages. If those papers could speak, they would tell stories of sleepless nights, frantic planning, and the terrifying reality that the end of the world might come at any moment. One document caught the eye, a memo dated 1962, the year of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The words were typed in bold, urgent letters: "Prepare for immediate underground evacuation." That single line carried the weight of an entire nation's fear. Further inside the bunker, narrow corridors stretched endlessly in both directions. Thick steel blast doors stood at intervals, each capable of sealing off entire sections in case of contamination. Each door was massive, heavy enough to withstand a nuclear blast, and yet now they creaked like tired, forgotten giants. Small living quarters lined the walls, metal bunk beds stocked 3 high, thin, worn mattresses, personal lockers still containing remnants of lives that once passed through here, a photograph, a worn book, a cracked cup, a handwritten letter. One locker belonged to a man named Thomas Hargraves. He had been a young communications officer stationed in this bunker at the height of the Cold War. He was barely 25, freshly trained and terrified of the responsibility placed upon his shoulders. His job was to monitor radio transmissions, listen for enemy signals, and relay any threat immediately to the command center. Thomas had spent months underground, separated from sunlight, fresh air, and the warmth of everyday life. He wrote letters to his wife every night, though he was forbidden from telling her where he was or what he did. One letter, still preserved in his locker, read, "Every day feels the same down here. No sky, no stars, just concrete and machines. Sometimes I forget what daylight even looks like, but I keep telling myself, if we're here, it means the world above is still safe. His words echoed through time, reminding anyone who entered that bunker that real people lived, worked, and feared within those walls. Deeper still, there was a room known as the survival chamber. This was where the chosen few, high-ranking officials, scientists, and military leaders would have taken shelter in the event of nuclear war. The room was equipped with air filtration systems, food storage units, and even basic medical facilities. Rows of dusty gas masks sat on shelves, their glass lenses staring blankly into the darkness. Old radiation detectors rested on tables, frozen in time. A faded sign on the wall read, "Do not remove mask until clearance is given." It was chilling to imagine a time when this room might have been the last hope of survival for Britain's elite, a fragile sanctuary in a dying world. But not all bunkers were the same. Some were built beneath government buildings in London, hidden beneath ordinary streets where people walked daily without knowing what lay beneath their feet. Others were constructed inside hills, disguised as agricultural structures or abandoned factories. One such bunker was buried beneath a quiet railway station in southern England. Above ground, commuters passed through every day without knowing that a nuclear command center lay just meters below them. Trains rattled overhead, while deep underground, men once prepared for the possibility of global destruction. Over time, as the Cold War faded and the Soviet Union collapsed, these bunkers lost their purpose. Some were sealed shut, some were left to decay. A few were repurposed, turned into museums, storage facilities, or even luxury homes for those fascinated by their history. But many remained untouched, forgotten, yet still watching. In recent years, urban explorers and historians have ventured into these hidden places, drawn by curiosity and a desire to understand the past. They descend into darkness armed with flashlights, cameras, and an uneasy sense that they are walking through a frozen moment in history. One explorer named Eleanor Grant described her experience inside a decommissioned bunker in northern England. It felt like stepping into another world. Everything was still there. The desks, the maps, the equipment. It was as if the people who worked there had just stood up and left mid-conversation. I kept imagining what it must have been like to live in constant fear of nuclear war. In one corner of the bunker she explored, she found a chalkboard with a final message scribbled across it: "Stay alert, stay alive." Those 3 words summed up the entire Cold War mentality. But the bunkers were not just about survival, they were also about control. Britain's government had carefully selected who would be saved and who would be left behind in the event of a nuclear attack. Ordinary citizens were never meant to enter these underground shelters. The bunkers were designed for those deemed essential: politicians, military leaders, scientists, and strategic personnel. This harsh reality revealed a darker secret of the Cold War. Survival was never meant to be equal. While the elite prepared their underground refuge, millions of ordinary people were left above ground with little more than air raid sirens and flimsy public shelters that would have offered minimal protection. The bunkers in many ways symbolized that divide. As decades passed, the purpose of these hidden structures became more symbolic than practical. They stood as monuments to an era defined by fear, mistrust, and the looming threat of annihilation. Yet even today, their presence lingers. Some say that when you stand near one of these abandoned bunkers at night, you can still hear faint sounds: the hum of old generators, the echo of footsteps in long corridors, or the distant crackle of radio static. Others claim that the bunkers feel alive, as if the tension of the Cold War has been permanently absorbed into their walls. Perhaps that is why they remain so haunting. They are not just empty structures, they are memories buried in concrete, reminders of a time when the world balanced on the edge of destruction and when survival meant disappearing underground. In the quiet English countryside, where sheep graze peacefully and wind sweeps across green hills, these hidden bunkers continue to rest beneath the surface, silent, forgotten, but never truly gone. They are the secrets of the Cold War, Britain's hidden bunkers, and their story is still waiting to be fully uncovered.